Hi there, and welcome to the latest edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast, which is brought to you by fans for fans, where the content is absolutely free. It is episode 154 of the flagship show. I'm your host tonight. I'm Colin Armstrong. As I say every week, guys, it's not just the pod that we have here at Gersnet. If you get onto the website, you'll see the forums there. There's articles. Frankie's got his social media, and there's a history archive on the website as well. If you like what we're doing here at Gersnet, then please give us a like on and a subscribe on the YouTube channel. Put the word out there in social media. Let everyone know that we're here and what we're doing. Pod's live tonight. It's a Sunday night. We're looking at the game yesterday against Hearts. But the pod will be available to download and stream on a variety of platforms from tomorrow, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, Spotify, all your usual places, guys, where you'll pick up your pods. And now to bring in my guests in what's been a disappointing weekend. I think that's probably the mildest way of putting it. I'll come to the gaffer first because he'll probably sack me if I don't. It's Stuart. How are you doing, Stuart? Or Frankie, how are you tonight?
I'm well, thanks, mate.
You're on mute.
Oh, you guys can't hear me, can you? If I do it that way, that's better. You should be able to hear me now, can't you?
Yeah.
Right, everybody else could. You guys couldn't. Hi,
that's what happens when we let the gaffer on. You know, he makes a mess of it.
Aye, there's because I've got the Streamlabs thing on in the background. It's a load of different controls compared to you guys, and it's always sort of pot luck as to which one I pick. But other than the result yesterday, a good weekend. I went and seen 007 this afternoon.
Did you?
With the wife, so that was I fair enjoyed that. So
I went to see it a couple of weeks ago without giving anything away. Obviously, spoilers. What did you make of the ending?
It was good. I kind of seen it coming. I hadn't seen spoilers online, but I kind of guessed that's what was going to happen. I think Daniel Craig's a bit likes his ego, doesn't he? A wee bit different, and just with the start with the music, the Louis Armstrong stuff as well, kind of gave the game away if you're a Bond fan. But it was good. I did like it. My wife wasn't too enthused, but anyway, folk are not here to listen to me and talk about James Bond, so we'll get back.
They're not here to listen to you talk about the football either, Frankie.
Probably not. It's you and Alec. I'll just sit here and press all the buttons.
and on that, Alex, how are you? It's been a while since me and you have been on a show together.
It has, mate. It has. I'm thinking this might be the first time this season.
I think it is.
I'm thinking it's after a few weeks ago I was on and I was talking about how 3/4 of my family are Catholic. Suddenly you don't want to be on a show with me. I don't want to start any controversy here. But
what can I say? My white gloves and my bowler hat are right here. That's all I'm going to say.
That's it.
So what did you make of yesterday? I mean, we'll get into it, but
I want Frankie to keep talking about James Bond. You know, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but with the school holidays through there, but my wife's a teacher and we were away it was October week last week, so I was kind of depressed enough. And I was saying to Frankie before we come on the night, going to see Rangers to kind of cheer yourself up before you go back to work. Maybe a bad move. I mean, a team that hasn't lost a league game at Ibrox for well over a year and still managing to put the boot into us. But I'm a bit depressed anyway, mate. Back to reality tomorrow, but Rangers got me there a bit earlier myself. How's your good self anyway? You all right? Are you off? Your kids off sooner?
They've been off. They were off. They're off. They were off last week and tomorrow, back on Tuesday. So, and I'm working from home. So, great fun. It's great. You know, try to work and they're kicking about. But anyway, guys, I suppose we better. I'm trying to avoid talking about yesterday, but I suppose we better deal with the matter in hand. Frankie, I'll come to you first. You know, I mean, I had a real bad feeling. I'm a supporter of habit, you know what I mean? So I've got the same routine pretty much every time I go to Ibrox, and I buy my programme from the same stand every week. And we were a wee bit late yesterday because my son was playing football through in Motherwell, and the time he got back, we were cutting a bit of fine. We got in just at kick-off. And as we turned the corner off Copeland Road to head up to the ground, the programme guy wasn't there. And I turned to my son, I was like, oh, that's us, we're humped. You know what I mean? The routine's knackered, it's going to be a bad day. And sure enough, drop points, missed the opportunity to increase our lead over Hearts and maintain our lead over Celtic. I mean, people talk about the first half being good, but overall, I think there's worrying signs in this Rangers team this season. You know, we've already lost. Was it 4 games in Europe? We've lost a game domestically, but that's the second time in the last 3 home games that we've dropped points. So all in all, a poor day at the office, I think.
Aye, it was, unfortunately. I think the first half was quite good. We started at a decent tempo and really forced Hearts back, and I think we really gave them a sniff in the first half. Although, ironically, I did think just before we scored, sort of 5 minutes before we scored, that Hearts were coming into the game a wee bit, and we were starting to lose our way a wee touch, and maybe sort of running out of ideas. So it was great when Lundstrom sent that beauty right into well, I thought it was actually the top corner, but it wasn't. I seen the highlights. It wasn't quite the top corner, but it was good, and you're kind of thinking second half more of the same. Hearts weren't in it, didn't have much of a threat, but we just seemed to play a wee bit deeper. I think guys tired a bit. I think Aribo tired, Hyde tired, Lundstrom tired as well towards the end. But I mean, we still had 2 or 3 good chances in that second half to put the game to bed, and we just didn't do it. We didn't heed a couple of warnings either that Hearts gave us, and unfortunately it was a mistake, obviously, for McGregor that cost us the equaliser at the death. And I mean, even then, you still kind of had 5 minutes to try and get a second goal, but we didn't have the belief there, and it's becoming a bit of concern that these guys. I mean, I don't think anybody's unrealistic in their expectations in terms of us matching what we did last year and going undefeated in the league, no conceding goals at Ibrox and such like. But I do think we can expect a bit better than what we've seen this season, and the manager's been pretty vocal on the fact that we've had issues with injuries and COVID and what have you, and that's all well and good. But to me, there's the kind of lack of belief in the sort of poor body language that we've seen in previous seasons, sort of early seasons under Gerrard, and even like Tav yesterday. I thought Tav did all right the first half. Second half, he just sort of, his shoulders just seemed to go down, and he seemed to lose any kind of belief, and because of that, we started to have issues defensively, because I don't think Goldson trusts Tavernier anymore, and I think that's one of the issues. You'll notice when we have Patterson there that Goldson seems to play a wee bit better than has done this season. So down that right hand side, we're having issues, and it's, as I say, you could pick any player and go through them and criticise them. I mean, yesterday Morelos obviously had a bit of a nightmare, but you could go through any of the players. There isn't enough guys doing well week to week at the minute, unfortunately, and it's up to the manager now to try and sort it, because so far he's kind of struggling on that front, to be fair.
Alex, on that first half performance, I mean, I seen people yesterday saying they felt it was the best that we'd played so far this season. I mean, I can kind of see why people are saying that, but I mean, even then, I still felt, we weren't anywhere near what this team's capable of. But I still think they take extra touches. I still think they look slow sometimes in moving the ball forward. But there was a lot of positives yesterday, and I find it interesting that Gerrard, he went with, it looked like a sort of 4-2-3-1. He had Lundstrom and Kamara as a sort of 2 sitting holding midfielders. That sort of middle 3 of Hadji, Aribo, and who was the other one? Right, and obviously Morelos up front, and it seems to be a slight change from formations he's used in the past. This sort of 4-2-3-1. He changed it in the second half. We'll come on to talk about that. But in terms of the first half, did it give you encouragement? Did you think, well, here we go, this? Because I was going into yesterday, and I think I've done this a few times this season, thinking this will be the day. This will be the day when everything clicks. And for periods of that first half, it did feel like it was a bit better.
I thought we did well. You're talking about changing your pre-match routine. I did the same yesterday, mate. So maybe we both jinxed it. When yours was changed for you, I decided to go to the Loudon. I mean, you can tell by my face filling the screen that I do like a drink, but I usually just drink after the game. I like to go into Ibrox sober. But yesterday I thought, no, I was still in the holiday spirit. So once I get a few Tia Marias in me, I can't really judge the tactics. I can't judge the formation that well, because I'm up the Rangers end of the main stand, if you like, practically in the kind of 6-yard line. And I was watching, I'm watching what's going on up, and most of it was going on up at the Broomlin end, which was great for a start. And it was that lovely feeling of it was taking a wee while to work out what the actual formation was, which is a great thing. It wasn't that thing we've been doing a lot of times this season, a few times last season as well, where we're straight away in a kind of rigid, we're too rigid in how we're playing. You can see, the ball is going to go out left to Kent and he's going to cut back it. It was like, where's Wright playing? Is Alfie one up? Is he on his own? There was so much movement going on. And I couldn't work out if where Joe Aribo particularly was supposed to be playing. And it was in a good way because they were everywhere. And there was a lot of interpassing, a lot of lovely touches. Couldn't really work out what we were doing. It was obvious, as you say, Lundstrom and Glenn Kamara were sitting, but mostly we were threatening to kind of dazzle. And I think, see myself, suddenly got that feeling towards half time. But after we scored the goal, you're thinking, I felt this way at the Motherwell game, Motherwell at Ibrox. It was the same thing. We were really good. And you're always conscious of being that spoiled bastard Rangers fan, the kind of guy who's like, nothing's ever good enough. And we've got a team here who just gave us everything we needed last season when it came to winning the most vital title, arguably in more history. So you don't want to be too hard on them when they're no, like as Frankie's saying, going the whole season unbeaten again, But I think this season, you're right what you're saying, you start getting that feeling quite early. We're performing really, we look really good, but we've only got the one goal. It's getting to the stage where the most horrible feeling in my life is for Rangers are one goal up. It's just, are we going to get the second? And like say, even the Ross County, we're away to Ross County, worst team in the league at that point, and we're going 2 goals up, but quickly getting it back to 2-1, back to 3-2, and not quite get, we go 4-2 up. And that's, it sounds like it sounds like spoiled Bampot, but it's a concern when it's actually bleeding into all our performances. But actually, like when we go a goal down, obviously we lost the game at Tannadice, and I wasn't bothered at that because, well, obviously you're devastated to lose any game and for one beating England to go, but we just never turned up that day at all. We just looked kind of poor the whole game, really. We hadn't arrived, and that's no one I regret and think we could have had 3 points here, because we never looked like having 3 points that day. Maybe a point at best. But there's these games, we're on the cusp just now. You're beating Celtic 1-0 with, a couple of reserve, like a third choice goalie, a third choice fullback. And they're having, Joe Hart's coming up for the corner in injury time that we always seem to give away. We're 1-0 down to St Johnstone and McDermott. Then we go 2-1 up, and we still have a wee repeat of the Scottish Cup at Ibrox last season, where Xander Clark's coming up for the corner. Even when we beat them D1-0 at Dens, we still managed to, in one of the worst performances this season, but we win that game. We didn't show anything like attacking ability yesterday, and we give away a wee shy out of nothing. And as the clock turns to 93, exactly, the injury time is up at 93 minutes at Dens, we give them a one last chance of chucking it into our box. These are the games we come through with a win. Whereas, like Motherwell and, yesterday, we're playing really well. We're turning on the style, but we can't get that second goal. And you think it's going to cost us. And I just, as a wee kind of sidebar, why is it always, what is it with the last minute or the injury time equalisers? Have we ever scored one of them in the last 2 or 3 seasons? And the amount of times, even the St Johnstone Scottish Cup game last season, one of the greatest seasons in Rangers history. Even the league games were like, Hamilton Accies are scoring against us with literally the last kick of the ball.
Benfica as well, they've done it twice.
Benfica done it. Benfica, it's particularly the game in Lisbon, absolutely brutal. And then Tav even puts us 1-0 up, and with about 3 minutes to go in extra time in the Scottish Cup game against St Johnstone at Ibrox, and we still managed to concede. It's like a kind of cruelty thing. That is spoiled Bampot stuff. That is looking for perfection. But it just seems to be. I can only think of a couple of games. We equalised against Celtic at Parkhead, and it was quite early on in the second half. And I think we equalised against Motherwell at Fir Park. I can only think of Rangers being a draw where we've equalised like twice or something in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
No doubt I'm wrong, but it just always seems, and there was, like you're saying, there's an inevitability, and you're thinking, am I imagining this?
There's no doubt you could feel it. You could feel it coming yesterday. You could feel it coming, yeah. And I felt the moment that confirmed that was Morelos' miss, the bad one, that he really should have put away. I mean, I know he had a few yesterday, but that one that Roof put across the face of the goal, I turned to my son at that point. I went, "We're going to regret that." That's a big chance to finish the game. And you're right, there is a sense of inevitability about it. You see it coming, and I find it frustrating that the players don't see it coming. And on that, Frankie, the second half, again, I thought we started well in the second half, and it seemed to be a continuation in the first half. I think the substitution changed. I think when he brought Bakuna on, it seemed to change, and the formation seemed to change. At that point, it seemed to go from that 4-2-3-1 we were talking about to 4-3-2-1. Where he had Hadji and he had obviously Morelos up top, and he had Hadji and I think it was Wright just sitting off, or Aribo, sorry, just sitting off and supporting them. And it seemed to me that was quite a negative change, and from that point on, I felt Rangers looked nervous and not as comfortable. And as you say, we got a couple of warnings. Liam Boyce had the chance, all right, he was offside. But McGregor didn't know that, and he still had to make the save. I mean, Barry Mackay just walked right through us, and McGregor has to make the save. I think Gary Mackay-Stevens had a chance as well. So towards the end, you started to see that Hearts were coming into it. And I've started to wonder this a couple of times, if this is coming, if it's either it's in the team and they're more nervous and they're holding on to things like, we'll just hold on to what we've got. But because of the formation change yesterday, because they went 4-3-2-1, I kind of thought, is this coming for Steven Gerrard? Is this coming for the coaching staff? Look, we're 1-0 up, just hold that. And we're not capable of seeing it out as being proved. We conceded late against Motherwell, conceded really late yesterday. So is it the team? Are they nervous? And because there was a couple of times yesterday as well, I felt Rangers, they broke up a couple of Hearts attacks, and you felt, right, now go. There's players out of position, there's a chance to counter, and it goes sideways or it goes back, and there's just not that killer instinct of right, okay, let's go, let's try and create something. And I don't know if it's the players or whether this is how the Steven Gerrard wants Rangers to try and play this year.
It's a good question. I don't think Scott Wright had a great game yesterday. I don't think he's it's not had a fantastic season, unfortunately. I suppose he's in and out of the team, so it's not hard to be overly critical. Bakuna's looked okay in flashes, so I was fairly happy with that substitution. I don't think the system changed that much. I didn't really see a huge amount. I think it was more the case that maybe Hearts forced us a wee bit deeper. We were playing a bit deeper ourselves, but full enough, I mean, we were trying to push the defence up. I mean, you mentioned warnings that we had. There was the long ball over the top that Balogun got booked for pulling Boyce back when he was going to sort of go clean through. Fortunately, Goldson was covering across. So I just, it's a hard question to answer. There just seems to be a lack of belief and confidence right through the team. I mean, I mentioned it in my first answer. They're just the body language is poor, and I kind of thought the other week there, after the sort of Hibs game, you'll remember Gerrard was quite sort of gesticulating after the match, and it was quite obviously enjoyed that win. And I kind of thought that's me like it, because I thought the manager himself, he's been fairly sort of, I don't know if subdued's the right word, but just not the same sort of charismatic guy that we normally see of him, and that's why people sort of see this conspiracies here about he's unhappy, he's not had any money to spend, all the rest of it, doesn't get on with Ross Wilson, or he's unhappy with Ross Wilson, or unhappy with the board for no promise, giving him any sort of promised money. I don't think there's anything in that, just to make that clear at all. But as I say, that there is questions about confidence through the team. I mean, you wouldn't think we were the team that won the league by 25 points or whatever it was last season. We didn't have that confidence. We didn't seem to be wanting to stand toe to toe with teams and say, I'll tell you what, you can come at us, but we'll come right back at you. And you're right, Colin, that there was times where we had the chance to counter and we didn't quite do it. But I think that just came down to energy levels. I think normally you can get away with maybe one or two guys misfiring. Unfortunately, this season we've had a lot of guys misfiring, and the guys that have been doing okay, such as I thought Aribo did quite well earlier in the season, and he's kind of went off the boil. But he's playing a lot of international games, and we're not able to get him out of the team. The same can be said for Kamara. I don't think he's had a great season at all. Obviously, right through the summer, playing with Finland, psychologically, the racism stuff can't be helping him, his mindset. And again, we're unable to take him out of the team. We have been able to take Stephen Davis out because he was starting to play really badly, and luckily John Lundstrom stood up, and he's been our best player in the last 2 or 3 games anyway. I think Balogun's done quite well, but other than that, who can you say is doing the business? There's nobody. So I think every player's got to look at themselves in the mirror. The manager as well, Mick Beale, the guy took a lot of praise last season. This year, you mentioned there just now that on Saturday's game about the subs, were the right subs? I don't know. I don't think they're the wrong ones. I mean, the benefit of hindsight, you can certainly suggest that they were, but for me, it has to come down to the manager. The manager has to find solutions, and he's going to have to find them pretty quickly the way things are going.
Yeah, Alex, on John Lundstrom, I mean, I think a lot of Rangers fans questioned, I wouldn't say his ability, but questioned whether it was the right signing for us early on, because I mean he really struggled. I mean the game at Tannadice was a big example of that. He was so slack for Dundee United's goal. Obviously the European game, he made a hash of that and put us in a wee bit. I mean we got through and all the rest of it, but it was for an experienced player like that, you were expecting a lot more and a lot of questions asked about, is this guy actually capable of playing for Rangers? It was like a Rolls Royce yesterday, I thought, and it's about the third or fourth game in a row now. You're like, I don't think he's far off sort of Stephen Davis levels in terms of how he moves the ball about. I still think, I mean, when we were playing, I was saying earlier on that I think we're a bit slower and all that this season. Earlier on, I was sort of putting that down to Lundstrom. I don't know if that's the case, but certainly since he's been in the team, I think we look slower. But I mean, the way he was moving the ball about yesterday, again, just so good with his use of the ball. And the finish was top drawer, absolutely top drawer. And another man of the match performance. I mean, everybody was going on about Mo Salah's goal yesterday. I think Lundstrom's goal tops it, to be fair.
I'd say so as well, mate.
Completely unbiased opinion, of course.
Totally. I mean, Salah. What's he really doing? It was Watford. You know what I mean? No, it was a cracking goal and capped a fine performance. And I think a lot of bears on Twitter quite liked his post-match interview on Rangers TV as well, where he was told, the bear fella asked him, "Are you quite chuffed to get your first goal in the league or whatever it was, and be the man of the match?" And he's just like, couldn't even answer just because he was that pig sick that we hadn't won the game, and he's basically said we've got to win the game. So we like that attitude, and I have worried about his attitude. I don't know, sometimes he does look like kind of big time Charlie who's thought to himself, I'm going to come up here and waltz this, and then maybe 6 months down the line that's going to be great. Yes. He will be the big time Charlie, and he is waltzing it, but I think he sums up what's going on with us this season. Every time you think something's bad, you come up with a good point to counterbalance it. A lot of the performances yesterday, I think there was everybody on the park yesterday did something great and did something poor. Lundstrom was, his good things were the best things on the park, and his bad things weren't really noticeable. I think he still needs to track back a bit more. I still think he's not really got the memo about having to cover back. I think I'm probably being harsh here. I was sticking up from when he was getting slaughtered, so I'm just doing that kind of, trying to make myself look smart by going against the grain of public opinion, by trying to pick fault with him. Knew that everybody's starting to love him, but I still, if you watch the sports scene highlights, a dodgy thing to do at the best of times, but you watch the sports scene highlights of yesterday's game, anytime Hearts are going through on our goal, including like Barry Mackay's wee run and what have you, Lundstrom's still, he looks to me like it could be. His eye's not really on the ball. He's not really backtracking enough. But I think he's getting to that point where he's actually, for example, the first goal we conceded to Leon, because he was still in the bad books for a lot of people, he was getting a bit of blame for that. The guy's curled one in for the wing, basically. Yeah. And if he'd gone into the tackle that night, he would look like a clown, because the guy would take him out of the game probably. So he's just tried to kind of harry the guy out to the wing, and he's curled it in an absolute a worldie of a shot. So I think yesterday as well, he's quite close to a few things that nearly went wrong for us. No, the goal, but guys going through and go. Look, Lundstrom's, but maybe it's that thing like a striker who's getting blamed for no scoring, but yet he's doing the thing of being in the right place at the right time. But no, I think he was definitely our man of the match yesterday. He was like his man of the match against Dundee at Dens Park when the whole team played terrible. So you're thinking, right, that's good. We've got somebody coming through. That's maybe the way for a guy who's taken a while to settle in to actually, prove himself. You want when the whole team's playing badly, right? That's he gets his first man of the match. And now we're getting to the stage where we're just wanting the whole team to play well and Lundstrom to be man of the match, and that's it, confirmed. The guys arrived. But he kind of looks like I didn't know anything about him, but where he's coming from, you're thinking that's a good level. Sheffield United, the relegation material, but a good level. But also he kind of looks like the kind of love child of Jörg Alberts and Steve Davis, and like they couldn't raise him because of the social more, so they had to give him to somebody, and it was Nigel Spackman who's kind of raised him. He's got a kind of combination of the three of them for me as he struts about the park. He looks the business, a total unit, mobile, and he combines. He does that thing of getting us moving, which is no just focus. You're quite right. We're looking towards him to kind of be the new Stephen Davis, if you like. But also, I think he's doing a Ryan Jack thing this season for us as well, which is something Will we ever see Ryan Jack again? But we miss that guy.
2 weeks
so
apparently.
much.
2 weeks again. It's another 2 weeks.
Light training, is it?
Perennial. It's been 2 weeks for the last 10 months, I think.
Sorry, Ryan, we're not laughing at you, mate. It's just the fact that we want you back so badly. We're just, I hope that's true. But I think he does a lot of Ryan Jack kind of stuff as well. So, hopefully that's one good thing we can take for yesterday. The big man's starting to arrive.
I'll stay with you the now, because I want to discuss the dodgy keeper moment with the dodgy keeper that's on the show tonight. So, Morelos, never mind shake your head. Morelos, I mean, I think we've had these similar conversations with Morelos, or about Morelos, sorry, a number of times over the years. And he's going through one of these phases again where he's just, Frankie was talking earlier on about body language and all that kind of thing. And Morelos is never the best for that anyway. He always looks kind of sulky and a bit moody. But at the moment, I mean, I thought his link-up play yesterday was pretty decent. I thought he linked the play up well. But he's finishing, and he's, again, another one that looks really slow at times, and Rangers look like they can go. He kind of slows it up at times, and I mean, a couple of the misses were bad, but that final one, the one we were talking about earlier on, Ruth puts it across the face of the goal. I mean, any striker worth their salt has got to be putting that away, and I just feel Morelos. I mean, Frankie said earlier on that a lot of players at this present moment in time aren't performing at their best. He's definitely one of those. He's just not. He's just not performing at the levels that he's capable of performing at, and I don't. When he's on the park now, I don't trust him. I don't think we're going to get goals through him, if you know what I mean. And that's unusual to say for Morelos. You know what I mean? It's you just don't see a goal coming from him at the moment.
I'm not disagreeing with Tommy. It was the misses yesterday were incrementally worse. Again, watching the sports scene highlights. Obviously, I was still scarred when I went back to the Loudon yesterday. Needing even more tear in my ears. After the misses I saw, because it was up my end, but the first half I didn't realise until I watched the sports scene highlights that he was gradually, his misses were getting worse and worse. He was having a flap at a ball that rebounded to him quickly, for the edge of the box. That's fine. Then there's that one where I think it's Joe Aribo just slots him in lovely. He's coming the left hand side of the 6-yard box, and he goes past the far post. And it's right. That's fine. He's just getting his eye in, but it literally did just get worse and worse, and finishing with that, or not finishing, being the problem, ending with the one where he's missing from point blank range, basically an open goal. I think he did the 100 t-shirt on yesterday. I think he did the t-shirt on underneath the top with the 100, and he's ready for the big celebration for his 100th goal for Rangers.
To be fair, that tends to happen, doesn't it? When strikers are approaching a landmark, they go through a dry period.
That's it, and I'm thinking Alfie is a guy who likes to milk his glorious moments, and we love him for it as well. But I think we were thinking the same thing this time last season about Alfie. He was getting not you and I, maybe in particular because we were watching the games, but there was a lot of criticism for him not getting the numbers. This is a big thing. I remember particularly Darryl Broadfoot. I made a mistake listening to BBC Sports Sound one night, and Darryl Broadfoot was talking about how this guy Morelos who's supposed to be worth all sorts of money, and he's had something like 2 assists and 2 goals, and we were getting into October. That's just not good enough. But we're watching games, and he was having the assist to the assist every time.
Yeah.
And yesterday, again, everybody doing something great yesterday, doing something bad. He had a few terrible layoffs as well, Alfie, as his confidence was starting to go in the second half. But as you say, his general link-up play was fantastic. And there's times when you can see Alfie just isn't interested at all. But yesterday I felt as if he was like trying and then just losing the concentration when it came to the finishing. He was all over the place. He was leading the line. You see, like the goal when Hyde takes a guy to cleaners down the right wing and he fires it in. You see, there's two defenders, three Hearts defenders all rushing back, and two of them are trying to cover Alfredo. He does take whole defences out the game, you know, and the ball then comes back and Lundstrom's got more time to kind of, set himself because Alfie's occupying the defence. I still think he doesn't get the praise he deserves. He can have physicality, he can ragdoll any kind of centre half he wants, and he keeps the defences occupied. But yesterday it was just purely the finishing, and he's a striker. He's the main striker, and he can't finish. His finishing is a strange thing, Alfredo. Like the goal I always remember that kind of sums him up. I think it's a goal against Porto. We beat Porto 2-0 at Ibrox. The one he scored against them away from home as well. The guy, he's a legend, But the goal against Porto, the way that he almost miscontrols the ball and it bounces up and he kind of half volleys it, half shoots. There's a kind of bouncy quality about the way he goes about stuff. It's almost like he likes a different. They go and yet there's games like the Alas game you're talking about. We're under pressure because Lundstrom's got himself sent off. There's a number of times you've seen Alfie like that night. He's going through on the goalie, and if you get time to think about it, like way back to the Rapid Vienna game, the first European League game for years, he's going through to make it 3-1 finish it. It takes that kind of pressure if it's like really momentous stuff, and he's got a clear run through and goals. And he's got time to think about it. The kind of thing that puts off likes of Kenny Miller for years. Alfredo's not got a problem with that, and he's not got a problem with things are moving. It's really kind of athletic, but there's that kind of in between thing. Like the chances yesterday, the ball's coming to him, and he's just kind of got to kind of control and steer it in. And it's almost it's not 100% a kind of Mark Haley. It's not a kind of athletic strikers type of finish. It's more a kind of a Jermaine Defoe or back to Gerd Muller, a kind of poacher type finish. He can't quite manage that. A lot of the time. But no, I think the whole team, as we're saying, is fits and starts a lot, and they're not doing enough. Like we're top of the league, but we're no motoring. There's such a general feeling just now that this is what we're all talking about, that things haven't really got going, and we kind of need them to get going before anybody else in this league really gets going. I'm talking about Celtic. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, that's one of the things before I go to Frankie on McGregor. I'll come on and talk about this in a couple of minutes, but people were coming to me on social media yesterday saying, "Oh, at least we're still top of the league." I'm now getting the feeling that we're top of the league because Celtic had such a bad start. If they'd had a decent start, we'd be in bother right now. But we'll come on to that. Frankie, no better person to talk about dodgy goalkeeping than your good self, obviously. McGregor. He's been so good through the years. You can't really criticise him, but he's bailed us out time and time again. But I would argue that's. The only really bad one I can remember with McGregor was the one that he let slip through him against Celtic. It kind of went through his legs. A 4-2 game a few years back, and we got out the hole that day. Of all the errors, I think that's one of the worst I've seen from him. But he just totally misreads the flight of the ball, and he's underneath it when it comes to him, and makes a hash of it. And as I said, I don't want to lay in too heavy on him because he's a club legend. He's dug us out the hole so many times, made so many great saves. But he's another one as well this season that I don't think has looked entirely himself. He had a couple of good saves yesterday. Obviously, the one for Liam Boyce was offside, but he doesn't know that. But overall, I just don't think he's been at the same level also as he was last season.
I think that's fair. I would go back to, and I'm sorry to labour the point, but I'd go back to body language as well. In the last couple of years, McGregor's been really, really dramatic on the park in terms of how he treats referees, other players, his own players where necessary. You remember the game after the Hamilton draw last season. He basically said we were pish in the after-match interview, stuff like that. That all seems to be missing for his game this year. Again, other than after during the Hibs match the other week. There, I sort of seen that charisma that's normally evident, and kind of so that was another reason I thought that we're getting back to that, but it seemed to be missing yesterday. Despite making 2 or 3 good saves at key points, it doesn't look confident. And I mean, you said it yourself. You can probably count on one hand the amount of mistakes that leads to goals for McGregor. It doesn't happen very often. The guy's a fantastic shot stopper. His position is excellent. His concentration's fantastic because, like a lot of Rangers goalkeepers, he doesn't always have a huge amount of stuff to do, and he has to make saves at key moments in games where there's tight matches. And unfortunately, yesterday he made an arse of it. He came for the cross and just got caught underneath the flight of it and just didn't get enough on it. I think he touched it, but unfortunately it just went through to Halkett at the back post, who's knocked it in, and it was McGregor's fault. You could see he was annoyed with himself at the time. I don't think you can say much else about it. He's had a nightmare, and it happens. The same can be said of Morelos. I mean, I think Morelos has not had a great season. I think he's done well over the piece in terms of the way we play, because we're asking. I mean, we've seen it last year, but he's changed the way he plays. Before he was much more a penalty box player, or certainly working the channels. Now he's the man that likes to play. He's the man that comes deep and it goes out wide. And the problem is Morelos struggles to do that and then get back into the box. And the second problem we've got just now is when Morelos is linking the play, we didn't often have players out wide. Tavernier and Barisic, they aren't in games. They aren't playing anywhere near as far forward as they usually are. I mean, yesterday, Barisic wasn't at that game. Yesterday, I was watching him throughout the second half, and he was getting pulled inside, pulled inside all the time. And we were laughing in the car afterwards. I'd have somebody standing at the side of the pitch with a hose and Barisic doing every 5 minutes, honestly, to wake him up. It's just like, he's looking about as if to say, I didn't seem to realise he's in a 50,000 capacity crowd at Ibrox, top of the table clash, and wasn't in the game whatsoever. So it's just, I didn't understand these guys that are struggling to find that awareness and that realisation that this isn't going to be a cruise to a 56 league title. This is going to be difficult. Hibs and Hearts are making it difficult. Celtic, they will get better. Anybody says they will get better over time. Will they get better quick enough? I don't know. But so we've got to get better. And Barisic is a senior player in our side, as is Morelos, as is Tavernier. And these guys, they need to start up in their game and get back to the levels that we know they're capable of, and they need to show to lead the way. They're international class players. I mean, okay, Tavernier doesn't play for England. That's fine. He's never will play for England. But is that of that quality in a certain way? So, and he's done the business for us over the last couple of seasons. So, it's these guys that we look to improve things. McGregor as well, unfortunately, and I mean, as I say, that save kind of summed up the game for us, unfortunately. Or that mistake that summed up the game. So there's a lot of problems just now. I don't think we need to overreact. I mean, you mentioned earlier that it's a bit of a sort of fake argument that the fact we're still top of the league, but we're still top of the league. It's valid, so there isn't any reason to panic. However, we do need to find a much better level of performance and a much better level of commitment and attitude on the part during games, and it has to come for right through the team, for McGregor, right through to Morelos and anybody else that's playing as well.
Alex, a very goalkeeper answer there from Frankie. I thought. I asked him about McGregor and he started talking about Morelos and Barisic and blaming everybody else. That's typical goalkeeper, honestly. They're no right need. But anyway, right. Final point on yesterday's game. Like Frankie sort of alluded into it a wee bit, where we are. Have you got any concerns? I'm worried. I must admit, I do have concerns about Rangers at the moment. I had expected us, I got it at the start of the season. You had the Euros, you had Copa America, you had COVID, you had all these kind of things, injuries. things that sort of led to a sort of disjointed start. But we're 2 weeks away from the clock's going back and winter time and all that kind of stuff. I saw my first Christmas advert on the telly the other day there. We're pretty much in proper winter now, and we're still not clicking. And I was looking at the league yesterday. Celtic have scored more than us. They've defended. They've conceded roughly the same amount. I think Celtic are a more creative side than us at the moment. I think they've got more goals in them. So if they can score 3 and concede 2, they'll win games. We're showing now that we can only really score 1, and we're conceding. We're conceding pretty much every week at the moment. Rangers. It feels to me that Rangers are going into the games having to score 2 because we're going to concede. Too many players are out of form, and there's just that. It feels like the season after, like Souness's first season when we won the league, that second season, it just felt there was always issues throughout the whole season, and it kind of has that feel about it to me. And I'll be honest, I'm not chucking in the towel. I'm not asking for Steven Gerrard to get sacked or anything like that. None of that whatsoever. I'm proud of this group of players, proud of the manager for what they've done last season. What worries me is, like as Frankie said earlier on, we were never going to reach the same levels as last season, but it's how far we've fallen that's concerning me.
Aye, I'm definitely concerned, and I think yesterday made a massive difference to how we'll think about how we're all feeling just now, because there was a kind of, for me, there was always going to be a massive reaction to the fact that we had finally won 55. And this is something that, and another thing that I harp on about, which is just a kind of half-arsed theory of mine, but I'm going to mention it again. And I know a lot of Rangers fans will bite the face off me for even saying this, but I do think not being able to celebrate that league title when it's been rammed into them so hard, that 55, never mind stopping Celtic winning their plastic 10 or 9.5, whatever it was they were trying to win. It was 55. And Steven Gerrard has drummed that into all these players. Obviously, this is the fans have drummed it into them. This is what we want. This will make you heroes. And I think a lot of some of the players have come back, and even the players that were there. The guys that we just signed last season had never played in front of a full Rangers crowd. I think even the likes of Tav, who's been there the longest and knows more than anybody else how much this title meant to us, for him this season maybe coming back and getting and there's a few kind of dissenting voices when everything isn't going 100% perfect. Just that classic Ibrox thing where there's about 10,000 folk who, if we're 4-0 up against Real Madrid in the Champions League semi-final, will still go, what are you passing it back for? There's just that general, and I don't know if a lot of they're expecting to be received as total heroes, in a way that maybe hasn't quite happened, and didn't actually happen on the day they won the league and last season at all because of COVID. They never really got that. I've said this a million times. They never got that proper standing ovation kind of day a lap of honour, what have you, with the fans, and really that kind of feeling of catharsis that would let them mentally fully recharge for this season. And because I think, like the Celtic game, we beat Celtic 1-0. After the celebrations at the end that day, and the Rangers fans also, I think, were terrible generally as a support for just getting the hell out of Dodge, no matter the result. The stadium just empties. But the Hibs game as well, just before the international break, the Celtic game, the fans hung about in a real way. It wasn't just because Stevie G was out in the park and all that. It was just, I think we were enjoying. There was a kind of bleed through for last season, but we were having the wee kind of lap it on our moment that we should have had last season. And I think there's been a kind of strangeness to that. There's a kind of I think that's why it kind of affected the general kind of collective mentality of the players, that they didn't really get the praise they were due from the people they wanted it from the most in the proper fashion. They're all professionals. We've all got to do real jobs. They go out there and they play football, so they get no sympathy for that. But I think it's when you're asking them to go out there and put so much kind of, put themselves physically on the line every week to do the things they did last season. I think it's psychologically, you can't really expect them to carry on to the same standards when they haven't had the praise that motivates them in these games. But we are top of the league, and I want to believe it's one of these seasons where, having the good side of that 55, having won the league, we're kind of now there's a relaxation. It's rather than we don't look intense enough or we don't have the tempo. There's a kind of self-belief that we've maybe taken too far in certain games this season, like yesterday's. But there's a kind of we're going to be okay. Now, Hibs and Hearts have been knocking their pan in. They've had amazing starts to the season, and they're still no above us. Celtic have been terrible, right? And they're 4 points behind us. That's slightly concerning. But we haven't hit any form at all. So you're hoping the lovely time to be hitting proper form would be, 1st of December through to 2nd January, a month and a day. We have got, we're away at Easter Road, Tynecastle, Pittodrie, Parkhead. If we go then and we do the business in those games, if we hit our form, then no more. The international breaks, I think, are taking a big toll on the kind of fluidity of this team, and yet we're top of the league. And if we hit the ground running in the coming months and we get ourselves through that December period and anything approaching the fashion we did last year, I'm hoping Celtic will have, maybe Celtic will be the first team to beat Hearts or whatever in the next wee cycle of games, league games, and they'll get a kind of false sense of we're going places and we'll just put them back in their place. Because I think it's getting to something, the momentum any season, it's getting to the point where we just don't lose to Celtic now. And it's getting to the point where just the sheer weight of numbers would say that we have to lose at Parkhead in January. But if there's a different story created, if they go into that thinking they're favourites, they think they're the team with momentum, I think we would give them a serious scalping. As long as everything else, Ryan Kent's no there, and he's been playing. He's been playing with an injury for the first part of the season. Tav's, been rested. We've missed Goldson for the first time ever. Colin said nothing my part, or that's that. I can be quite boring, You all right, mate? You all right?
Aye, sorry guys. I need to plug my laptop in or I'm going to lose you. So sorry.
Right, I'm going to stop talking because the folks start leaving the room. That's a hint I should take.
No. Honestly, it was nothing to do with the quality of your conversation. My laptop dimmed and I thought, wait a minute, and I need to plug it in for 2 seconds.
There's mitigation for everything, for the way we've been playing, and we are top of the league. And I think maybe come January we could be looking back at this pod and thinking, Christ's sake, what a bunch of panickers. But I don't know. I'm just going to throw this in there. Did Steven Gerrard's interview on Friday when he was asked about the Newcastle job? What did you think? I don't think he knocked it back as stridently as I would have liked him to. And the problem is things like that. And maybe the way we've started the season, because we always start the season strong under Steven Gerrard. The way we've started the season is maybe we're top of the league, Christ, but he always. What I'm trying to say is he always improves. He always improves in what we were doing the previous season with the start to the season, and this is the one time the start to the season has been, a bit below par, not by much, points wise, we're not much worse off than we were last season. But it's when I saw that interview and I thought he didn't really. He was very professional and very respectful to both Newcastle and Rangers, but he did not. To me, he didn't really say, "I'm no going." He didn't say, "I'm at Ibrox for the rest of the season" or whatever.
We'll find out. I mean, we spoke about this last week. I'm not convinced, but money talks, and maybe if there are frustrations behind the scenes about signings and all the rest of it, then you never know. But guys, on to other matters from last week. A really bizarre one, I thought. There seems to be controversy around Rangers in every aspect now, and it seems that Rangers can't launch a kit without there being controversy. So we launched the kit. Now, to me, the real controversy is this is the 8th kit under Castore in the year and a bit that they've been with us, but that's another argument. So we've launched the 150th anniversary kit. It sort of looks like it's very much modelled on the Gallant Pioneer strip with the Blue Star badge and all that kind of stuff. The tune that went along with this was that Four Lads Had a Dream tune, which I think is quite appropriate given it's harping back to the Gallant Pioneers and all that kind of thing. But it seemed to cause a bit of controversy. Michael Stewart, our dear friend Michael Stewart, waded in nil by mouth, have waded in. I've got their statement here. The laudable mission statement from Rangers. Everyone, anyone campaign. The question that the club has to answer today: does using the tune to what has sadly become the famine song on an official video live live up to a single letter on it? You can call for action. You can't call for action on racism one week, then blow the dog whistle on bigotry the next. Michael Stewart, he sort of said, why this tune? This is supposedly a celebration, so why use a tune so offensive to so many? A tune connected to a song that some Rangers fans were charged for singing only last month. Why do this? Stewart, I'm so tired of this nonsense. I really am. I don't know what Rangers can do. I mean, the song Four Lads Had a Dream has been getting sung at Ibrox for a long, long time now. It gets played at Ibrox every week. Yeah, this is somehow sectarian. I mean, it felt as bad as mine when they claimed that the Hokey Cokey was sectarian, about 5 or 6 years ago. And I just think, don't get me wrong, Rangers and certainly some Rangers supporters have answers to questions to answer, on the issue of sectarianism. The supporters who were involved in that stuff a couple of weeks ago, you had the incident on the supporters bus going up to Dingwall, all that sort of nonsense. I don't think anyone here is claiming that the Rangers supporters are whiter than white. There is an element that continue to cause issues. But I don't see how that spills into the club and what they do. And I don't see how, in any way, how that video was sectarian or could be deemed sectarian. And I was I got a text off my mate and he summed it up. He says, this is boring now. It is actually boring. You know what I mean? It just seems, and it's always the same people. It's always your Michael Stewart, your Graham Spears. I was amazed. I mean, I know you commented on it on Thursday that Nil by Mouth got involved in this. And I just think it's tiring. It's boring. And it feels at times orchestrated and deliberate.
That's because it is. It is coordinated. There's no doubt about it. I was completely stunned the other day there when Nil by Mouth released a statement. Not least because I've had a few dealings with Nil by Mouth over the years when I worked at the Trust and through Gersnet and stuff like that. So last 20 years or so. And almost always, if you contact them, they say they can't get involved in anything unless the press asks them. The press didn't ask them the other day there, and they're getting involved in something. And what they wrote, or the tweets that they made, were disgraceful. And to try and compare this or equate it with what happened to Glenn Kamara was disgusting. And again, I was stunned. I mean, I expected it for Michael Stewart. I expected first and foremost, it came for some daft Celtic fans, and you laugh at them. And even in this case, I must admit, I didn't think anybody would take it any further than that. So I was kind of still a wee bit surprised when Stewart got involved. But for Nil by Mouth to give their tuppence worth is bizarre. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, I think you've got to go back to the famine song. I mean, people argue about the famine song. They'll say it's sarcasm, it's a joke, and it isn't. It's offensive. All right. Is it racist? I'm not convinced. It is racist or sectarian, but it's offensive. It's ridiculous. We can sing a million better songs than that. Even if you want to take the piss out of Celtic fans or whoever, there's better songs than that to sing. But so the Four Lads Had a Dream song is the entire opposite, or the sort of the antidote is the word I was using earlier, towards that song, because it's aspirational. It goes back to the forefathers of our club, the history of our club. Okay, it uses the same tune. Maybe not ideal, but it stops people then using. So when kids hear that tune, rather than singing the famine song, they'll sing Four Lads Had a Dream. And that's what's been happening for the last, 10 years at least. Since, I mean, you very rarely hear the famine. So I didn't hear it at any games. I didn't go to any away games nowadays, actually, but certainly even like 9 years ago, you didn't hear it at games. The famine song, it was never a very popular song at games. It was maybe out with, maybe in pubs and stuff like that. So when you did hear it the other week there, or allegedly heard it the other week there, in the city centre of Glasgow, it was very disappointing to sort of hear it make a comeback. But to try and say because of that, Four Lads Had a Dream should be cancelled is just doesn't make sense. If anything, it should be the opposite. That Rangers should be pushing it. So again, just to reinforce the message that there's more positive things to sing about when it comes to Rangers, whether it's our history, whether it's our future, anything. There's loads of things. It can be funny, and you'll have offensive songs as well. It happens at football games. I heard some for Hearts fans the other day there. I hear it for Rangers fans regularly. That's football. Unfortunately, in this country, in Scotland, football and sectarianism are often, the lines are blurred on that, and certainly when it comes to sectarianism, as I've said it for a long time, and on Gersnet and on the website, I've said it in fanzines. Sectarianism in this country is an industry, and people make a lot of money out of it, stirring it up, having fake offensiveness, outrage. Nil by Mouth are a charity, but they've got people employed by it. They make good money. They take a wage for the charity. They take expenses, a lot of expenses for the charity. It's their job, so it's in their interests to perpetuate myths to a certain extent, and that's not a direct dig at Nil by Mouth. I mean, they do a lot of good work. It's easy to overlook that in your haste to be offended by the fact that they didn't comment on this or they didn't comment on that, or the fact that they're criticising our supporters or our club. They do a lot of good work in schools and stuff like that. So let's not suggest otherwise. That would just be silly. And so that in that respect, I have a bit of sympathy for Rangers, because there were some fans saying, "All right, let's kick them right. We can't be involved with this crowd," and I've got a bit of sympathy with that point of view after what they did last week. But at the same time, Nil by Mouth want to talk about education, and they make a big thing about education, which is entirely correct. I think in this circumstance, they're the ones that need educated, and they got it completely wrong. And as I say, I was stunned, and it's a real shame that when people that can lead the debate on these type of things and can be constructive and can be fair and can be objective, they refuse to do so. Michael Stewart is one, Graham Spears is another. Spears has done that for the last 20 years. He's been doing it, and he'll continue to do it, and he's made a lot of money from it as well. And unfortunately, people like Michael Stewart, they've seen that. So Michael Stewart can't make money from talking about the game because he doesn't know enough about the game. So he'll manufacture outrage and offence and just be contrary in his opinions when it comes to Rangers. And fair enough, Rangers fans might not like it, but he'll get a lot of other people on side because of it. No, everybody's a Rangers fan. And unfortunately, it's just sad when it's Nil by Mouth, when it's charities that then take up that baton and say, well, we want a part of that. And you've got to question their intentions when it's quite clearly that they're wrong in this circumstance.
Alex, sectarian melodies, apparently that's what we're dealing with now, and I find it quite interesting that Frankie brings in Michael Stewart. I mean, he was one of the main instigators in the whole thing. His latest tweet, I think, about Rangers was saying that Aribo should have been sent off yesterday. So it's obvious that Michael Stewart has an agenda on this, and it's interesting that on the back of UEFA announcing that they're not going to take any action against Sparta Prague, Kamara's lawyers come out and say that that's basically given a green light to racism. No one's coming out sort of complaining about that. I don't see Michael Stewart, I don't see Graham Spears, I don't see Nil by Mouth, I don't see any of them sort of sticking up for Glenn Kamara in this. But Four Lads Has a Dream gets played on a Rangers video, and it's the whole world loses its tiny little mind, as the Joker said. It's just, and like Frankie, I was genuinely, I'm becoming wouldn't say immune, but I'm becoming used to the fake outrage with Rangers. You know, it's every week. It is literally every week when it comes to the football side, and then they'll try and find anything they can off the field. But that stunned me. I must admit, to find offence in that video, really, it's new level man pottery, I think.
It's Rangers fans rage against nil by mouth. That's how this would be taken. Us trying to say nil by mouth have misjudged this. You know, they've made a wee mistake here. I've absolutely nothing against the people at nil by mouth, same as Frankie. Came out a horrible reason, trying to make the best, a horrible incident. That led to the formation of nil by mouth, and they do great work. And I just think at this particular juncture, I think if you're dealing with sectarianism, that's been such a big deal was made. It's not to do with the crime itself. It's to do with the tenor and the weight of the coverage of that crime. In this case, we're going back to the day we beat Celtic. The boys singing the famine song, young lads singing the famine song in the city centre under Heelman's umbrella, maybe 20, 30 of them. I am not for 1 second apologising for the boys, but I could just as easily be sitting here saying, how dare they think that that's what that tune's about? The young lads, our tune is about the 4 young lads that set up Rangers. I'm reclaiming that. This whole stadium, Rangers fans were absolutely amazing yesterday, sending out the message that we will not have one of our best songs sullied with any sectarian associations. We're raging against the young Rangers casuals, young Rangers ultras who sang the sectarian lyrics. That you could take everybody else out of it and just say, oh, that was brilliant by Rangers yesterday. They're just saying, no way, we're having sectarianism associated with us. We're taking that tune back. We're showing it was always a song of love and maybe a bit over sentimental. Certainly the way it was presented in the kit advert. But that's the job of these advertisers. They're trying to sell kits. It's the fact that there seems to be an almost. I'm taking them by mouth out of this. I think they've, because there's been so much weight, so much heavy coverage of the sectarian use of that tune, the famine song, for, you know, like the Old Firm, recent Old Firm game. I think they're probably thinking that's the main use of that tune. They might not know, the people at No One Mouth might not actually know about the day I sat crying in front of the telly because we're beating Aberdeen at Pittodrie, and I knew we hadn't signed a new player in like 2 years because, you know, but Walter Smith was there and we were winning leagues that we shouldn't have won, and it was super romantic, and we knew we were in financial danger, but we're winning 3 titles in a row, and the Bears are on the telly at Pittodrie. I can hear the travelling support singing this song about the 4 lads. They had no kit, not even a ball, and that's how we felt at that time. You know, ludicrous because we're still massive, you know, compared to other teams in the country, but it's a beautifully sentimental tune that you would think was one of the ones that proved best of all that the Rangers support, generally just a football support who want their team to win and love, and they're there to love their football team for no reason other than the football itself. But it gets suddenly it's only about sectarianism, and it's, as you say, it's the melody, it's the tune. You don't want to start the tit for tat what about today, but you know, Labby Seyfried, something inside so strong. As you know, that was getting that's getting played, you know, on the PA system at Parkhead for years, when they're lifting trophies or whatever at Parkhead. It was a Celtic supporting mate who's telling me this. You know, it's also, you know, the official tune of Sinn Féin. They play it, or they're doing, you know, the official wing of the IRA. I don't want to get into all that, you know, but it's because that's the kind of thing you get into, and it's tiring. I think it's dangerous. You're saying, you're right, people are getting bored with it, and the danger is people are going to. I saw one guy on Twitter, I didn't get involved, just saying, just proves doesn't matter what we sing, they're going to hate it. So sing anything you like.
I don't want the second part of that, but I think that's what it could lead to. You know, it's the whole in for a penny, in for a pound thing. If we're damned anyway, then some supporters are going to say, well, you know what, let's sing the Billy Boys, let's sing this, because we're going to get stick anyway. And one thing I remember is getting told when the sort of famine song, I think it was about 10 years ago, I first sort of became aware of it. And, there was a huge reaction to it, quite rightly so. And one of the big things that we were getting told was, well, it's all right to use the same tune, just tidy up the lyrics. You know what I mean? And to me, that's what's happened. And now we're getting told, no, you can't do that because we associate that tune with that. So, like, everyone that's complaining about this, if they turn up at a pub and they play the Beach Boys, Sloop John B, are they going to go up and say, oh, you need to take that off because that offends me because it reminds me of the family song? I don't think that's going to be the case. You know what I mean? And it's the whole thing. It's the whole thing with the socks as well. The black and red socks, represents being up to our knees and all that nonsense.
It's the Govan Borough socks.
That's and the amount of people I've tried to educate on Twitter about that. You know what I mean? If you don't think it's got anything to do with Govan, look at the Govan High School tie. That'll tell you everything you need to know about where the red and black comes from. And I just think I thought it was new depths. And I've seen a lot of stuff over the last few years when it comes to Rangers and sectarianism, and the accusations, and I kind of feel for Rangers and the board in terms of, we're over 30 years for when we signed Maurice Johnson, and it seems to me that we're actually worse off. We get more criticism now than we ever got on the issue of sectarianism, and part of me thinks it's because people don't want us to be rid of this. They don't want us to improve.
The thing they're most terrified of, I know we're running out of time here, mate, but I think the thing people are most terrified of, and it's obviously it's blown out of hand. It's blown up out of hand since 2012. Is Rangers being in any way romantic? Is Rangers, or God forbid, a victim in any way? And I think it's really strange how the Glenn Kamara thing is cited the Glenn Kamara being racially abused is cited as somehow a kind of hypocrisy on Rangers' part. Anytime, somebody's caught saying something. Jock Stein, who a lot of Rangers fans don't even want you to mention, but Jock Stein said a great thing back in the day about how the old firm actually gave people the chance to vent all their sectarian nonsense for 90 minutes on a Saturday, as it was then, so they could go back to their work on the Monday and work with guys the other side of the coin, and knowing it was a lot of garbage, because you actually had a go at shouting a lot of nonsense at each other and just thinking, what a lot of shit. No, that's not how I live my life. And they could go and all work together through the week. But that was when Scotland was like totally industrial country, and I think it's the other way about now. I actually think Rangers I think the Old Firm are actually keeping that alive. I don't see Scotland's a more and more secular country all the time, and I think the only thing, I think people are looking for a sense of identity, and the Old Firm thing's kind of confusing it. It's keeping it going, a lot of the bad stuff, and for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And I actually think the thing that scares people the most is Rangers. And as a Rangers supporter, I liked us being the big bad guys. I like that. It's a bit of kind of, because it's silly, But I like the idea that we were big bad Rangers who were always dour and horrible to watch, and we'd win 1-0 at Parkhead with one shot and goal and stuff. I loved all that kind of stuff, But I think what's happened is the Ryan club got liquidated. Celtic's collective mindset is set up for the tax man's going to have a go at them, and he's going to close their club, and they're not going to let that happen. They're going to come back up. They've got the romantic kind of thing, anti-establishment thing in their DNA, whereas we're this, and it's just messed a lot of people up. And I think there's now a real kind of, if Rangers are victimised in any way, or God forbid they actually look like they're winning 3 successive league titles under Walter Smith when there's no right to win any, or when they've come back for liquidation to win their 55th title. It really scares people. And but as you say, that the nefarious thing is it's happening when we're winning. These and if we're all totally against sectarianism and any form of bigotry, but see if you actually disingenuously using accusations of bigotry, that is bigotry. I think people are just, they know what they're doing. They're trying to see bigotry, but it doesn't exist. And that in itself, I think there's a feeling that it's fair game. If we can get rid of Rangers, it's all worth it. No, you are the worst possible bigot if you are making false accusations of bigotry. And it's fucking heartbreaking, mate. Sorry, it's actually heartbreaking, and it's going to put people off the football and off following Rangers, and that is the idea.
And on that note, I'm looking at the clock, Alex, Frankie, and I think we've kind of overran by a wee sort of 5-10 minutes, so we'll call it time there. So big thanks to Frankie and Alex for their contributions tonight. Great stuff as always. We'll be back next Sunday night. It's Mum next Sunday, obviously, so we'll have a show next week. Don't know who's on that because Frankie's not got the agenda up yet, so we need to get that sorted. But in the meantime, get yourself onto the Gersnet website and forums at www.gersnet.co.uk. In the meantime, guys, until next week, or until the next time, bye for now.